Aloha, everybody, and welcome to Faith and Family First. I'm your host, Eva Andrade, and I'm here with my co-host, Marcus Oshiro, and we're going to talk about the beautiful bill, the Better Business Bureau. No, I don't know, just too many B's in there.
Business Bureau.
Bill.
Big,
beautiful bill. Big, beautiful bill. HR1 that was passed on July 4th. 4th
of July, he signed it into law. It's now the law of the land.
He did. So let's chat about that. But Marcus, you and I, we always joke around a little bit before we start. But I want to be serious for one moment. And I really want to just send our love and our aloha out to the state of Texas now.
Yeah.
And the families that are struggling and the lives lost. And, I know that our listeners and viewers also have been just absolutely heartstruck by what's happening there in Texas.
Yeah, I'm glad you're doing that. I'm glad we're doing that. It's just extraordinary how tragic and how terrible the effects of that flash flood, maybe once in 100 years flood along that river in Texas. And I feel for those families, especially for those who have little ones who are camping, enjoying the weekend. Just horrible. Yeah, so our hearts and I guess our prayers and our support will go out to them.
I think we were a bit prophetic because in our last show, did we not talk about being prepared?
Yeah, we did. Like even the Maili fires, a woman lost her life, some homes. I just, lift up those families in Texas. Yeah.
Yeah. And we want to give a shout out to the churches that rise. Every time there is an emergency, a natural emergency, the churches are there with supplies. They're there with love. They're there with support. And that's what we shine at. That as faith-based communities, that is what the Lord asks us to do.
Yeah.
And so, before we talk about all the spending, I just wanted to give a shout out to those people and prayers. So
thank you, Eva. That's appropriate.
Okay, so as we launch into the big, beautiful bill, which I still cannot believe that it's called the big, beautiful bill.
It is.
It's such a Trump thing because can you imagine any legislator anywhere going, I want this bill to be on my legacy forever and ever in textbooks that are going to call this the big, beautiful bill.
Extraordinary. I'm speechless that he actually got a bill signed into law. It's an appropriation revenue bill. I call it an omnibus bill, about 870 something pages or 1,000 pages. But it does everything. It spends money, it raises revenues, it cuts program. It does a lot in this one bill. So yeah, let's talk about it. There's a lot to get into.
So let's do a little bit of the mechanics so that we can walk people through this. So that it's over 800 pages long.
Yes.
And the first 12 pages are just index. So then you launch into 10 sections.
Yes.
And the first section, it's called in the bill the subtitle. So the first subtitle is tax.
Yes.
And under that, that's where they're going to talk about permanent tax cuts. They're going to talk about new cuts. And this is where the tax elimination on tips, all that stuff comes in, right?
Oh, yes.
Car loan interest, that was mentioned in
New
there.
Cars, made in America.
Made in America. Business expensing, charitable and adoption credits are in this section.
Yes.
So, what we're going to do is we're going to run through this really quick today because there's no way we can get into detail.
There's so much in there.
So we'll probably do another show to get into some detail on this. But so keep that on your radar, the charitable and adoption credits. Green energy repeal, that's where this comes in. So this is where Elon Musk starts to part ways with the president.
Yeah, but he saw it coming. Come on.
We're watching this like two of our children fighting. And mom and dad are like, please make up. Somebody posted on Facebook, it was hilarious, a picture of two kids wearing a white T-shirt. One kid got one arm in one arm, the other one got, and it says, "This is our get along T-shirt."
Yeah. Well, yeah.
The puka puka T-shirt. That's how. If they tried to do that to me and my brothers, that T-shirt would not be in existence.
Yeah, but yeah.
Yeah, and then the final thing in this is the international tax overhaul. So you got any thoughts on that section?
Well, I think the permanent tax cuts that were enacted in 2017 was always President Trump's goal, and he made that promise that if he got reelected, he would put that as a priority to extend and make permanent those tax cuts. So he has done that. He's delivered. Slim margins, right? Just one vote by tiebreaker with J.D. Vance, the vice, president, casting that winning vote. And in the House too, right? I think it was like 3-vote margin. So it's very slim. Very slim.
Very.
But that's the power of having the majority, in Congress, He got the job done. And, kudos to him, right? Honoring his promises that he made to his voters.
You and I were talking before we hit the record button. We started today. We were talking about, I was telling you that I don't like these big bills like this. I don't like it. I think that it puts way too much pressure on legislators because you get to that point, which is what we saw. I like this portion of the bill. I don't like that portion of the bill, so I cannot vote for it. And then you brought up a good point about the way Hawaii does business.
Yes. So in Hawaii, we have a constitutional provision that basically, in a nutshell, it basically says that it's one subject in a bill, one title. So you can't mix different elements of the appropriation, expenditure, restrictions, limitations in one bill when the title doesn't allow for that. And that was an example that I think we talked about earlier a couple of shows ago with a bill dealing with the naming rights of the convention center and or the Aloha Stadium. There was also a provision there that dealt with exemptions for procurement rules.
That's right.
And that was flagged by the Attorney General because it violated the one title, one subject rule.
And where are we on that yet? Has the governor vetoed that one?
What is today?
Today is the 8th.
I think, isn't it tomorrow or today or tomorrow? The magic day?
We are
the final
getting
list.
down. Yes, we are. Yes, we are.
But we do know that the legislature has said they will not be returning to a special session to override the governor. We know that.
Yeah. So there's any special session will not have anything to do with vetoes over.
That's correct.
Okay.
That's
good to know.
Yeah.
Okay, so on the second subtitle, that's the health section. And under that is where they have Medicaid cuts, Medicare changes, and the insurance reform. Now, this, of course, is where a lot of the angst in the community has been.
Yeah, that's going to be big. That's going to be big because it's going to affect all states. And frankly, I'm surprised that the Senate allowed some of those cuts to occur in the Medicaid area and the food stamp program. SNAP, Supplemental Nutritional Assistance Program, because that affects really the lower income, the poorest of poor, fixed income, senior citizens, disabled communities the most. And many of those constituents reside and live in red states.
So what I've been seeing with a lot of the questions that have come up now from the Republican side, right, is that it's not just cutting things to cut things. They're just adding things on there. For instance, it's not that they're just going to take your money away. They want to continue giving money. They just want you to have to report twice a year. So anybody receiving funding has to report it.
That's correct.
Or you have to work.
Yeah, so I think the analysis that's been done by those who oppose these changes is that instead of having reporting every 12 months annually, you go every 6 months. And that's going to kick off or make ineligible some of the people who are not able to attend to those 6-month rules and provide additional information or even process the forms and get through the bureaucracy. So that's a concern. And they kind of projected out those people will fall off the rolls just because of that. And then the other, and the whole idea about, eligibility to even find work. even 80 hours a month. That seems like not too much, right? 20 hours every week, right? Whether you're part-time, volunteering, but there are other obligations that some families and households might have, right? But I think on balance, most people understand that if you're able-bodied, like you and I, and we should be able to work or volunteer, give back to our community,
Right.
right? I mean, that's the idea, right?
And it makes perfect sense. I think that the issue of accountability, and that's where I'm hearing a lot of the concerns from people that supported this, is look, we don't want to just give away money for people and then not have some kind of accountability, right?
Yeah, and I see that coming. That's why.
So how do you balance that?
No, that's what
right?
it is. I mean, and that's why we have to assure that we make available training programs, we make available other services to enable people to go and look for jobs and be qualified for those jobs. Because some of these people may not be qualified. They're able-bodied, but intellectually or physically, they can't do the work, right? And if we don't support the employers hiring these people, well, they'll be for naught, right? So I think those are the things that we in Hawaii will have to watch and wait and see what we can address. But I think the general notion of holding people accountable, if you're able to work, you should work. Even
that's scriptural. That is scriptural.
Well, yeah.
So, but
I must have missed that class.
That is what Paul talks about,
Okay,
right?
okay.
Basically, that he who can work should work.
Right. There's also I think Hawaiian principle also. That those who are able to work need to work the land in order to grow the food, produce the food for the community. And if you don't contribute, then you're not entitled to any of the food. It's somewhat it
is a conversation that needs to be had, because I really do understand both sides. I think because of my Catholic upbringing, right? I get the idea that you want to help people, you want to give people a hand up.
Well, yeah.
Or a hand up, right?
Well,
you want to help them. You don't want to give them a handout.
Yeah.
You want to give them a handout.
And to be fair, politically speaking, this is not a new idea. This actually came about, I think, when Newt Gingrich was the Speaker of the House, and I believe Bill Clinton was the president. These are some of the requirements that they imposed upon the general assistance programs. In fact, I remember
that's a great example of working together, though. Two political parties working.
Yeah,
together.
I think that the people back then thought that there should be some requirement to contribute, not only take. But anyway.
And even under Reagan, right? But even going way back before that, under Franklin Delano Roosevelt, right? Because isn't that where all of this started?
That's where it started, yeah.
And it was a matter of helping people who were in a place that needed that bridge gap, right?
Yeah.
So, that's a conversation that needs
to
happen.
But you know what? The numbers here in Hawaii, they're so high. I didn't realize how many people in our community living amongst us, our neighbors, our family, our friends, who are dependent upon Medicaid.
Dependent because
low
of various
income,
things.
Fixed income, disabled, minority status,
We should, let's make a note of that. I think we should get somebody like in that field to actually talk about what Hawaii.
Yeah, who are those people? Right?
Who are so that we're not always, because I think we as people of faith, we get into that danger, right, of just using talking points that we've heard, right? This is bad. We
have 400,000 of our citizens now. 1.4 million. 400,000 of them are depending upon some Medicaid support.
I have
and senior citizens, Medicare now. In fact, to be honest, I'm a Medicare beneficiary.
See, I did not know that you were, but I can tell you I've got friends that are disabled. Because they don't like to be called disabled. So if you're watching, I apologize that they're not disabled.
Physically
in that
challenged,
sense,
intellectually
physically challenged or whatever.
Yeah.
But anyway, they rely on Medicaid, and they are freaking out about this bill
Yeah,
and
yeah.
what it's going to
So
mean
I think
for
we
them.
need
So
Hawaii's culture and who we are as a people. We care for each other, right? So we look out for each other, right? Our neighbors, right? The expansive neighbor, the ohana, right?
right,
So I think we
right.
need to watch, and I believe that the governor and the legislators are watching this item right here.
Yeah, without abusing it. But
That's
let's
correct.
talk
Yeah,
about it.
right.
Yeah. Okay, that's good. That's helpful. Okay. Oh man,
Yeah.
I
Sorry,
was I was
there's so
on
much here.
well,
Yeah.
I was on the wrong side of the page and you didn't even correct me. Under Title 1, which we did we talk about Title 1? SNAP reforms, commodities, crop insurance, and rural investment.
Yeah, I think there's a lot to be said for agriculture in Hawaii. I think Hawaii is a beneficiary on top of our ag programs. I think the loan program, the subsidy programs, the crop insurance programs, like the cattle industries will be supportive. The price supports that are going to come back into place, and then the deductions of income, business income for farmers are going to help the young farmers, the new farmers. So it's going to really advantage those in Hawaii who are going to be entrepreneurs, growing our food, being more self-sufficient. It's a plus. There's a lot of good stuff in this bill that's going to help our local ag industry.
That's good. See, so there is some good. So you can be opposed to this idea of a big bill that has all this stuff in it, pork in it that you don't like, but there might be some good stuff in there.
Yeah, there's some real good stuff. I mean, for example, like certain I look at Georgia because Georgia, has some farming there, and Georgia is the peach producers in the country, but their Senator Warnock voted against this bill because he couldn't stomach the cuts to Medicaid, Medicare, food stamps. But his state will benefit greatly from the agricultural supports and monies committed to agriculture.
Yeah, see, that's why for me having these big bills like this, it's so dumb to me. But but Trump did it. He did it. He said he was going to do it, and he did it.
And you know what? All things being equal, this is politics. This is the trade-off. You know what I mean? This is the good and the bad. You gotta quote unquote swallow the bad to get the good.
Yeah.
And then you got to go back to your constituents, explain to them, this is why I voted this way or I voted against, this way, right? Explain to them.
What was that old saying? A spoonful of sugar helps the medicine go down.
Well,
so there is some sugar and in this medicine.
There was a lot of glucose being spread around.
Yep. Kennedy, you let it slide, Kennedy. You let it slide. And okay, so Title 2 is the armed services portion.
Oh, yeah.
So did I do that here?
Oh, okay,
there we go. So that's the armed services
portion.
portion.
They did very well and then some, given all the conflicts going on in the world today, they did very well. I think the Secretary of the Defense will get A+ this pass.
Well, I'll tell you what, as an ex-member of the United States Air Force, I'm interested to see how this is gonna pan out. What's interesting is there is a little bit about border security in this section too, because of the military having to be used, right, for a lot of this stuff.
Don't get me started upon that, okay?
Well, I'm just telling you that's
Homeland
part
Security,
of
buddy.
That's
Well,
but I mean, that's.
Well, I think for armed services, for Hawaii's, being the military is so important to Hawaii. We have all 4 branches here. I think on balance, that's a win for us.
It will be.
Yeah.
That's great. Okay, well, Title 3 now gets into the banking, housing, and urban affairs portion. And then this is where they have some cuts and rescissions on climate, resilient housing, and defense production. And this is the national security related funding stuff.
Yeah, I don't. I'm
that's
familiar with that.
We're mentioning it, but we will leave that to the experts. Okay. Title 4 is the Commerce, Science, and Transportation section, which talks about infrastructure, which is funding for Coast Guard, space mission, and air traffic control upgrades, which everybody and their grandmother has been talking about the air traffic control upgrades.
Every week we always hear about a near-miss collision. I tell you, the skies are getting dangerous. We have to go and improve our control towers.
That's what I mean. So let's see if this has any impact.
Those guys are essential workers.
So,
let me tell you.
So we will applaud that they're getting some money for that.
You got to get right people there.
That is great. They are cutting funding under this section for green energy. For the National Atmospheric Organization and with the NOAA.
NOAA, yeah. I
NOAA.
think that's important. We have a major installation out at Ford Island in Pearl Harbor. But that is essential, especially in these days of watching the effects of climate changing. And, I mean, this is an example. Texas is an example, right?
Yes.
NOAA had to predict, knew about it, give out the warnings, issue the warnings timely.
And there's the big argument over whether there wasn't enough people because of the bill, and other people saying that there were actually more people than usual because of the bill.
Ramped up because of the storms approaching. They ramped up. They had that provision in the law to do that.
I am telling you, this is a message right now to anybody who's in the journalism field. Just be honest. Be honest. If there's something good, promote it. Whether it's Trump or whether it's Biden or whatever, just promote. I think you're going to get more people that are going to read your materials and listen to you if you're just honest in reporting.
No, but I think that's why you have people like this, right? The alternative media, non-traditional media. We're not the legacy media, right? We're not even media.
We're
just podcasting, talking about things, right? Giving our observations and our opinions, right? But yeah, I mean, that's part of the problem with the legacy media, right? All the alphabet soup guys out there, right?
But that's why I'm saying somebody step up. I got to say, Civil Beat does a pretty good job. I've had conversations with Chad Blair. It doesn't mean I agree with everything they put out, but I want to call out good when I see good, regardless of where it's coming from.
They try their best.
They try. Yeah.
Okay.
Okay. So under Title 4 now. Title 5, I'm sorry, is Energy and Natural Resources section. And this is the oil and gas expansion section, mining and timber, energy credits, and water storage. Now, under the energy credits, this is where many of the green energy tax credits have been removed. They're going away. And again, why Trump and Musk parted ways.
Yeah, I think that's one of the reasons why. Yeah.
Yep. Okay, and Title 6 now is the Environment and Public Works section, and this is the climate rollbacks, where they're saying that over 25 climate environmental funding programs have been eliminated. So that's...
Well, this is where states like Hawaii are going to have to pick up the slack, because it's existential for a community surrounded by water on all major islands to be aware of that. So... we have to go and kick in.
That's
on our
what
side.
Governor Green has said. I mean, love him or hate him, the governor has said that we're going to have to step up now and fill in those pukas, where we've lost funding. Then that's where legislature is going to have to step up.
But we've always done that. When there have been a recession nationally where we're short, we had to go and, reach back in, break our piggy banks, look into every pocket of change, and then fill the gaps. I mean, that's just part of the job, right?
That's when you become a legislator.
Yes.
That's one of your items on your job description.
That is.
Fill in the pukas.
Fill in the pukas. Fill those potholes.
Fill those potholes.
As soon as you can.
Oh, do not get people started on potholes. We're going to get emails and comments on the potholes. So under that, the infrastructure and grants are cut. So they slashed some clean school bus stuff. I always think of Kamala Harris when I think of school buses now, the yellow school buses that she likes so much. Methane monitoring and low carbon building programs. The climate justice was defunded. So it ends funding for community-based climate equity initiatives. So that's going to be interesting. But again, with Hawaii, we're going to have to watch and see how we get affected by this. Now going back because my paper was upside down.
Okay.
So now we go back to the finance section where we already talked about the taxes, right?
Yeah.
We talked about the health. Now subtitle C under this, and now we're under Title 7 for those that are following. Even though I'm Portuguese and I did it backwards and went back, on the debt limit now, which was raised. And this also was a big argument for a lot of legislators.
Yeah, I think it's something that people will say that Trump went against his own promise during the campaign trail not to raise the debt. But I think it was one of those things that speculating out over 10 years, it depends. I mean, if the economy starts to generate additional revenues because of these tax cuts being made permanent, some of these other changes, then maybe the projected deficit of whatever 37 trillion might not be as high. It's a wait and see. We have to see. But the fact that we're in major conflicts going around us, we're involved in the Ukraine-Russia situation, we're involved in India and Pakistan, we're involved in Israel and Gaza and Hamas. We're dealing with Iran and Hezbollah and all these organizations. I think it makes sense to kind of beef up our military, expenditures and armaments and the ability
for them to do their job.
For them to do their job,
Yeah.
for our
Yeah.
military to do their job.
Can we not have another Vietnam situation?
I
I was
hope
young,
and pray we
but
do
I
not.
remember, Marcus, that a lot of the angst back then was that the military did not have the funding to do what it needed to do.
So we have to not engage in forever wars. I think that was a concern when Trump went in there and bombed some of those facilities in Iran. That's going to engage us into that. Fortunately, there's a peace deal going on right now.
Right. I got to
between
say,
Israel and Iran, because if that doesn't hold, there could be a lot of problems.
Yep, you need a tough leader right now. You need somebody who can handle all of this stuff and be able to do it.
Yeah,
And
it's
so,
quite remarkable.
love him or hate him, Trump is able to walk and chew gum at the same time,
He's
right?
all commander in chief.
He really is.
Yeah.
Okay, so the last subtitle D under the finance is the unemployment, and this is the millionaire ban that people have been talking about, right? The unemployment payments to high income individuals. So that's a good thing. I don't think millionaires should be getting unemployment.
I don't think so.
I have a problem with that.
Yeah.
So we have just a couple minutes left. We gotta really plow through this. So Title 8 is the health, education, labor, and pensions section. This is where they're dealing with student loans, Pell Grants, accountability, regulatory rollbacks, and the Garden of Heroes. And that's the one where they fund the Patriotic Monument Program. So that's interesting.
I think Charles Yeshua will be happy. I think he runs that program, right? The
Yes.
National Monuments Program, right?
Yes.
So I think he'll be happy because they'll give him more money to go and shore up and maintain all of these monuments
Absolutely.
throughout the world.
And like you said, this is where we have to be paying attention.
Yeah.
Just because it's now we got to hold their feet to the fire.
Yeah.
Okay, the last two sections, Title 9 is the Homeland Security and Government Affairs section, where they talk about border security and the federal personnel. There's some pandemic funding in there that's going to be stopped. So that's going to be interesting. And then finally, Title 10, which is the judiciary section. And this is the immigration fees, law enforcement funding, and radiation compensation. And that specifically extends coverage for atomic test victims and uranium miners.
That's appropriate
So
and
that's
necessary
good.
and long awaited.
All right. So in this last minute, Marcus, what would our call to action be on this big, beautiful bill, 870 pages long?
I think people need to look at and wait for and weigh in on the governor's and the legislature's reaction. Where are the shortfalls? How does it affect local people in Hawaii locally? And understand there are going to be trade-offs. There are going to be decisions that have to be made, but that's their opportunity to weigh in on the most appropriate course to address some of the shortfalls by this budget. Big, beautiful bill.
And make sure you like this video, share, subscribe, hit that notification bell so you know every time we upload a new video. And stay tuned for next week's show because we're going to be talking about the humongous wins on SCOTUS, our Supreme Court of the United States, what that means, and they keep coming, they keep coming. So we'll see you next week. Mahalo, everybody.